Welcome to the iPhoneography podcast. I am Greg McMillan, and it is Monday, August already, the 25th, as we record this. Tonight, we are going to talk about portrait mode. But before we do, I'd like to just beg and plead one more time that you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's growing nicely, and we're getting closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers. So just hit that button. It helps with the algorithm. It gets, you know, more people will be. This will be suggested to more people. So it's free. Give us a hand. Um, so I'm going to bring in these guys, Dave and Dwight, and in the chat we got Norman hanging out from the UK. He stayed up late. Thanks, Norman. Appreciate it. Good to see you there.
Always
So how you guys
appreciate to
doing?
have an audience. Doing good.
Doing
I
all
must say,
right.
I know, Greg, you're getting ahead of yourself with October, but
Oh,
tomorrow does start the most important season of the fall. Pumpkin
and
spice latte season starts tomorrow.
Oh, is that tomorrow?
we've already had it.
So Trader Joe's is going to smell like cinnamon.
I think pumpkin spice is already here. Like it's been here for a few days, at least anyway, at the local Tim Hortons. But we got Luke from Edmonton and Maurice from DC. Hey guys, welcome to the
guys.
show. And I got my dog wanting to get into this room so bad. Oh, they're both coming in. As if Ginger's going to have a few appearances, I think. But anyway, we're going to talk about portrait mode. This is something that I've been wanting to do for an episode for quite some time, and I'm kind of glad we're doing it because it's a very technical thing that they've put into these phones, and it's very often easily misused. Partially because some folks unfortunately may not know exactly how to get the best out of it. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish here, is by explaining a bit about it and trying to help people get the best out of the feature that's in basically every iPhone now, likely, unless you got something older than the iPhone 7 Plus, because that's where it started. But so a quick overview of what portrait mode is as well. It basically simulates like a traditional camera, um, with the blurring that it does in the background. Would that be a fair statement, guys?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So, like you said, it's trying to, and in reality, you can only get a true blur through physics.
Yes.
You need distance, you need focal length, you need size. So, like, know a lot when it first came. I know you were talking about, but like when it first came out, the computation wasn't as good as it is now. Now it's a whole lot better, and you have a lot more controls. Luckily, now that you did back then.
Yeah, it's and when this first came out, I didn't have the 7 Plus, the iPhone 7 Plus when it started. I had my first phone with with portrait mode was the 8 Plus, and it came out at the same time as the 10. And I wrote a blog post about it. It's called Closing the Gap, and at the time I thought it was really like closing the gap between the iPhone and a traditional camera in the way they get this look. But so let's look at a history of the iPhone, or of portrait mode, and basically how it works. So the history is basically that it started in 2016 with the 7 Plus, and it was a dual lens camera system, the first one on an iPhone, and it used both those lenses to get the kind of the depth information. And the best way to explain it at that time was that it took the central part of the telephoto lens and fused it with the rest of the image from the wide camera, and somehow with all this computational stuff, it put it together to make a portrait mode image. And at the time, it was okay. Probably, I mean, it was early days, obviously, and so it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool when they did that. Uh, so the way it works, and we'll get into more of the history of it when we look at the improvements that they've made over the years. So the way it works on the iPhone is it's subject detection. So it uses AI and it finds faces, pets, objects. It uses depth mapping. So it uses a combination of the cameras, lidar in the later phones, basically since the 12 Pro phones, or it may use AI segmentation. Um, AI segmentation is really used with the single lens phones that can do this kind of thing now. It does black background blur or bokeh, and we'll get into that a little more later too. So what it does is basically it simulates an optical shallow depth. Depth control. You can adjust the blur strength after capture. We'll see more about that later. Portrait lighting. It adds studio style effects. Again, we're going to see a lot of this stuff later. Night mode portraits. It works even in low light now, and I think that started maybe. Well, we'll get into these as when we get into the history again or the improvements. And then auto depth capture started with the 15s, and what that is it took a photo as long as it was in Pro RAW or Hike. JPEG, I don't think it did it, but in Pro RAW or Hike, you can take a picture, and if it detected a person or an animal or maybe certain subjects or whatever, you could convert it to portrait mode afterwards in editing.
Mhm.
So that's kind of a quick outline of how it works. It uses a lot of these things either alone or together or whatever. I've um, never really been able to get a grip on everything and how it works. But
And Greg, maybe we can talk a little bit about LiDAR. Some people may not understand what that is, but LiDAR is very commonly used in automobiles for sensing proximity. So I believe
yeah,
it's shooting light beams out at a subject or an object, and then the information that comes back, it'll convert it into depth, and that's what notifies your computer system that you're too close or maybe too far to something. And I think, relative to an iPhone, it utilizes the three lenses, and it does the same type of technology that picks up the subject or object at the focal point, but it also reads beyond that. And I think that information brought back to the camera is how it computates its bokeh.
hmm yeah. Um, Dave, any of those things kind of stand out in your mind? Like did anything really surprise you when it came out? Like when it became available in these phones, like even portrait mode
Well,
itself?
yeah, I the biggest change I think was, and this is something Google did first on the Pixel phone, was being able to do um, portrait mode with one lens. Now,
Yeah.
it was not as good as two lens when Google first did it, but they were able to computationally figure everything out. Kind of Google's stronger on the software side, Apple's been stronger on the hardware side. So Google was able to do that, then Apple brought it to the iPhone. Also, if you have a phone with LiDAR, um, that makes it a lot easier to do night mode or to do when it's really dark because it's not using the light that's coming into the camera, it's using the LiDAR to actually, and if you have the probe model, if you look on the back, you have a flash, you have your three lenses, you have this weird dark area. And that's actually the LiDAR sensor going out, shooting out infrared light, and then having it bounce back, and it gives a depth pattern. It's not as detailed as the front facing camera because if you have basically almost any phone out there that is Face ID, that's using LiDAR to map your face. It's just that that's a very high resolution LiDAR that's using the map the face. That's why also you can get portrait mode for the front facing, because it's using the same technology to basically map your face and get your depth that way. That you can do portrait mode with that one lens, but it's using the LiDAR to give you the depth to give the depth information on there.
Yeah, and so yeah, and we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here with all that information, but that's good stuff to know. So okay, so let's look at the history of portrait mode, and what this will also go in conjunction with. What was I thinking here? This will go in conjunction with how it works and the improvements over the years. Um, so the history is basically, like I said earlier, 2016 computational with the first multi-camera iPhone, which was 7 Plus. 2017 came with, like you just said, Dave, True Depth camera. That was on the front camera on the iPhone 10 with the Face ID. So that's how it was available then. Or on the front camera. In 2018, single lens depth control with machine learning in the 10S and the 10R. Because the 10S had a single camera, I guess, and the 10S Max had the dual. That doesn't sound right. It's depending where I got this information, but I tend to think the 10S had both cameras. But anyway, in 2019, pets and objects and all cameras support portrait mode in the iPhone 11 series. 2020, LiDAR and night mode portraits were available in the iPhone 12. And Norman put in here, LiDAR is laser imaging detection and ranging. So there's the technical term, or the long form term of LiDAR. And thank you, Norman, for that. In 2021, cinematic mode and better edge detection in the iPhone 13. Dave, you had a first-hand look at that because you were the only one of the two of us at the time that had the 13. 2022, photonic engine boosts low light portraits in the iPhone 14. In 2023, auto depth capture. If there is a person or a dog or cat in the frame, that's when you can convert to portrait mode later. And in last year, with the 16s, you had smarter object detection and AI refinements with the iPhone. So it was, all those improvements, I think, are important to mention, because it just goes to prove that Apple has been continually working on this technology and on this feature of the iPhone, because every iPhone announcement always has a picture of a person or people, and I think they really strive to get great performance out of portrait mode, and it's getting better and better and better. So now we will move on to myths about portrait mode.
Oh, great.
And
Before you move on
Yep.
real quick, the history you gave is for the built-in camera app. There were times, just to, because there were times that you could get third-party apps that could do, they would have their own magic, their own AI, their own whatever programming, where they could do things that Apple would not. Apple would say, "Well, you need this to do this," and you're like, "Yeah, but there's a third-party app that can do the exact same thing on an older phone." Maybe Apple didn't think it was quite good enough, or it wasn't as easy, or for whatever reason. But there's always, like, the big rumor is, there's certain things that are only going to be on the 17, but there may be third-party apps, and that's something, if you're looking to do, like, especially portrait mode, where there's the built-in, but there are certain third-party apps, which may give you a little bit more control too.
I think Focus comes to mind, right? FOCOS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can actually mimic different shapes of bokeh, like stars and different colors and stuff. I think I was using that before it even came out.
Yeah, and you can actually take like just a standard JPEG image, a non-portrait mode image, and Focus will make it. It will find the subject and give it a segmentation mask and all that stuff, so that you can do all the stuff to it that you can do with a portrait mode image. Pretty cool and clever technology by those folks. And yeah, like back when I wrote that article from when I had the 8 Plus, Focus was the app I was using for all this stuff, and it's pretty good. So it's only for people. No, that's not true. So Dave, we're going to pull one of your pictures up here. Just give me a second and I will redo this screen share because it screwed up. Hang on. And I swore I wasn't going to have to edit this. Okay. All right. So this one here, as soon as I add it to the stage, there we go.
Yep. So this basically anything with separation, especially if you have a pro model. Now, if you only have a single lens model, it may, the computational may not be smart enough to recognize what's going on. But as long as you have 2 lenses, which almost all of them now do with the wide and extra wide, or a pro model, you can here the flower would just kind of by itself in the parking lot here. And my thought was, first of all, trying to minimize the cars in the background, and then sometimes it helps to have portrait mode if you're going to edit it further to add that segmentation. So now the only thing that if you put it into portrait mode, not letting it automatically detect, you do lose live photos. But if you allow it to detect and do the after the fact, putting in portrait mode, it can stay as a live photo. So I would like it if they can merge that eventually, so you wouldn't lose functionality. But yeah, so like I said, it's just a flower in a parking lot, and it has really good separation. The edge, recognition, the edge recognition has gotten much better, especially for something where it's complicated like this. I think one thing that does help is you have the gray pavement pretty flat for most of it, except for the flower, where you have the hill in the background with trees, where it's not just a simple, a plain color. So you do have texture up there in multiple shades.
Yeah, so there's that contrast between the dark green of the leaves, of the flower leafy parts of the flower and the parking lot, and that really helps with that, segmentation or that separation. So, oh yeah, go ahead.
I would say the other thing is, I believe this one I was using the 2x zoom to do the portrait mode versus the 1.
Yeah.
So, you basically with the Pro, you can do 1, you can do a 2, you can do a 5 for the built-in camera and do that portrait mode. Just a matter of how far back you need to get and how flat or how round you want an image to be. And it's something to play with too.
Yeah, for sure. So I should have said at the beginning of this whole episode that we're only going to be talking about the Apple camera because there are, like you said, Dave, third-party apps that can do this. Halide. I honestly don't know how many and which ones can do it, but we're just going to focus on the main camera, or like the Apple camera app for this. Another myth is, and we don't have photos for all these things, but when we do have a photo, we'll show it. It's always better than regular photos. So, Dwight, you want to speak to that one?
I'm kind of in the middle of a sneezing attack here.
Yeah. So,
you might have to take that, Greg. Sorry.
Okay. So one of the myths is it's always better than regular photos. Well, no, that I would say no, that is not true. There's a photo you'll see. So, spoiler alert, we're going to have another video at the end of this for the YouTube audience, and it's going to be a slideshow of a bunch of different portrait mode pictures that the 3 of us have put in Some of them you'll see here ahead of time, like you'll be able to see them in the podcast app of the audio. But if they're not in the audio, then they'll be in the video at the end of the thing. So they're in low light portrait mode. The fact that it can do a portrait mode in the dark or almost dark or in low light is pretty incredible. But it gets a little noisy and grainy and tight, that sort of thing. Like it's smudgy. It's not the greatest. And I tend not to take too many portrait mode shots when it's dark like that. I may take a shot of, to say, one of my dogs or something, excuse me, when it's low light, and then because there's a dog in the image, if I shoot it in Pro Raw or in Hike, I can change it to portrait mode later. That might give you a better chance at a better quality image. I'm not sure. Haven't really played around with it, but I'm just, grasping at straws from in my mind here of what could be possible. But um, but for someone to say that it's always better than regular photos, well, that may be true if there's enough bright light, and it could make a photo of a person look nicer, look better with the background blur and that sort of thing. So if there's any truth to that myth, I think that would be the only part. But in low light, no, not so much.
The other thing I'll add to that, Greg, is it works best when the subject is not moving.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
I tried to do an experiment while I was walking on the side of a road and trying to get the cars that are coming towards me, trying to get them as a portrait to where they would stand out more against the back, and it just didn't work out, because you do need to be within a certain distance, and for the lidar to work, it really needs not to be moving. So if you're doing a moving subject, a subject where you're going to be outside of a distance, or like you said, if it's going to be a little dark or not the greatest lighting, it's, don't want to say don't do it, but just get your expectations of what may come out like that.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Cinematic mode in video might be a way to do that, Dave, and maybe get a frame out of that. That could be a possibility. Maybe some homework for you to try.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So next is real bokeh. It's real bokeh. No, it's not real bokeh. It's computational. It's not optical. Now, this is a shot that I took with my 14 Pro Max. This is my friend Will, and he was down at the harbor putting on a little mini tutorial about mobile photography. So when I heard he was doing that, I said, "Yep, I'll be there." And there was probably 4 or 5 people there, so it was just a very impromptu thing. But that background is computational blur, and as nice as it might look, it's not real. It's not optical. I think if you do this stuff enough, like we do, I think you could probably tell true optical blur from computational blur. Now, this the separation from Will and the background is it worked out very, very well. I mean, it got all his fingers just right. Even his hair, if you look at this image up close, you could see that it really, it got all the hair just right. It's even the corner of his glasses. That's one of the weak spots for the separation. Sometimes it doesn't pick up the corner or the edge of the glasses, but I think his glasses are dark enough, like the frame, that it was enough contrast between the glasses and the sky in the background that it actually picked it up. I was really surprised. It's probably one of the best portrait mode shots I've ever taken. But uh, but to say that the bokeh is real, I think if you were to be right beside me with a traditional camera like a mirrorless or a DSLR and take the same shot at the same focal length, at an aperture that would, do that to the background, I'm pretty sure you're going to see a bit of a difference. Um, and like you said earlier, Dwight, with focus, you can change the bokeh to simulate or emulate different types of glass and different types of lenses and things like that. And I think with just a regular portrait mode shot, I think the blur is just too plain. It's just there's nothing special about it really. It's just blurred. And if you blur it too much, I think that's really where it falls apart. Um, this one I don't think is too much because that's a fair distance away in the background, and I forget what I set the aperture at when I played around with this one, but, like, it might be something like f4 or something like that, but, um, the lower the f number, the more blur there is. So,
And we'll
but it's
show an example later, Greg, of
yeah.
adjusting that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So stay tuned for and the YouTube audience. Stay tuned after we're going to sign off on the audio, but stick around because we've got a demo video and the slideshow to show, and you'll see all this stuff in action. Um, so let's see, what do we got next here? Um, so we were just talking about bokeh and the edge detection and stuff. Uh, that brings me to this one. Now, this is my nephew, and if you look on the left side of the screen here, or the left side of the image, you can see where the edge of the window comes down, and then it just loses it. It just lost that edge detection somehow for some reason. And this would have been my 12 Pro Max. Um, it had LiDAR, but for some reason it just didn't continue that down to the corner of the window, and it just got real blurry. That's one of the things that can happen when you're doing portrait mode. Now, it could have been camera movement. Maybe I was moving too much to uh, to maintain that level of detail in that particular part. I don't know. I can't remember. It's been a while now since I took this photo, but um, and he was probably moving around a bit too. So, but yeah, so that's something that like Dave said, your subject has to be very very still, and the more still you can hold the phone, excuse me, the better off you'll be too. So that's something to think about. Um, Next, we have too close or too far, and Dwight, this is a shot of your nephew. Very cute, I
Yeah.
must
So
say.
yeah, I think we've said that the sweet spot really is kind of in between 2 and 8 feet. So he's within that range, and you can see there's good separation between he and the background there. And I think the f stop uh, was just about right here. I think it really got into his hair if I went too strong with it. So all I wanted was a little bit of blur, just to separate and pop out the subject here. So I think 2 to 8 feet is a good distance for this type of application.
Yeah. Um, yeah, because with the blur, I think that the trick to making a portrait mode image look good is to get the blur just right. Like, I mean, you can put too much, you can put too little. Less is better than more.
Yeah,
I
I
think
usually
depending on
watch
the
the
image, of
hair,
course.
Greg. I watch the curls, and I kind of
Yeah,
I kind of go till those are blurry, and then I'll just bring it back. It's almost
yeah,
like reducing the opacity.
yeah. And the phone will tell you to move up or move
Hmm.
away if you're too close or too far away. So it will kind of guide you a little bit in that respect. Um, Next thing we got is poor lighting. Flat light can ruin the image. Dave, you talked about with your flower at the parking lot in behind. Uh, how even though the parking lot was kind of flat looking, that helped the image. But if you
Yeah.
had flat light everywhere, um, that would probably kind of ruin the image, don't you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, and it's really not contrast as in light or dark, but just contrast from different parts of the image. Because if you try to do something and it's very similar, around all the way around the image, you're not going to get it. First of all, sometimes it's not as easy to figure out the separation for the phone, and it just won't pop as much. Similar to we all know the worst light you can take. I don't want to say worst, but one of the worst lights you can use to take photos is a bright white, or like a bright sunshine, or just a bright light without any clouds, without any shading. It just kind of washes everything out. Same thing with portrait photos. Having that contrast, a little bit of difference between areas with the way the light's hitting it will definitely help the image look better.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Photography is painting with light, right? So light plays an important part in, I think, in all aspects of it. And this is no exception for sure. So next we have, and this is where I made a little boo-boo, and we'll get this one here up. This one here, a picture of my grandson. I think I went too far with the blur. It's like I used the expensive version of a 50 millimeter lens, and I put it at 1.4. That's what this kind of reminds me of. I think I should have dialed back on the blur a little bit and included more of him to be in focus, like down as far as his legs maybe, and have his feet in focus. Um, when you look at his head and his hat and that, and the background just looks so blurry, but it's not that far away. So, you know, I can go fix this. I could fix this, in an edit. But I wanted to leave it like this for, to be able to explain that you can go overboard with when you're editing a photo. And like you said earlier, Dwight, you don't want to just edit to the max when you're doing your blur. So it's just something to really watch out for. And the last thing under common mistakes to avoid, I should have maybe mentioned this segment in the first place, backgrounds that don't separate well. I've taken pictures of things in portrait mode where, the background just doesn't separate well from the subject. Okay, so in the slideshow, look for a picture of Dwight's, and his turned out good. The one at the mission, Dwight, is the one I'm thinking of. But it's a picture of a flower, of flowers, and surrounded by more flowers of the same. And then you can see the mission in the background. And you can easily get lost in the segmentation, or like breaking that subject out of the rest of the image by having too much confusion. And sometimes, when the phone is processing the portrait mode or the portrait image, it may lose things, like it could lose stems on plants or on flowers and things like that. So, that's why we said earlier that it's important to have a good separation from your subject to the background. Let's see here. And and so segment 4 is mastery tips. So we can't escape this phrase, or this idea of moving your subject further from the background. And Dwight's image of his son is just that. Where are we here? There we go. So you've got good separation between your son and that everything else in the background there, which works out well.
Yeah, it's okay, it's rendering a little bit more for me here. It's kind of in and out. There we go. Yeah, so I think you nailed it there, Greg. Little suspect around his shoulders. I don't have a pointer here, but if you see that gray line, that could have been something, in deciding the blur amount there, or some some lighting that's off. But yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
I think that's a good example of separation.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Another mastery. It's just this segment is called mastery tips. I don't know why the thing called it that, but that's what it is. But anyway, so the other thing that we can think about is side lighting. Using a side light, or that natural side light, like in this case here, or key lighting to show the features of the person, of the subject. That this was a Thanksgiving weekend at my parents' place a few years ago, and this was with my 10s Max. So that's how long ago this was taken. Um, but I told my niece, "Hey, look at me," and she just turned around and looked at me, and it wasn't planned or anything, but the sun lit exactly one half of her face, and I thought that was so cool. Uh, and I took it in portrait mode, and I edited when I did the edit. I basically just boosted the saturation and whatnot. But and I think I just wanted to set the blur to look as natural as possible. So if you look on the bottom, um, where the grass is and the leaves, it gets gradually blurred as it goes back,
Mhm.
and we'll talk about that more in a minute too. Um, but the side light just makes this picture.
Yeah, that's an epic photo, Greg.
Yeah, thanks. I was really, really happy with how it turned out. Um, you can do this kind of thing with and this is something that I totally forgot about until now. But there's an app called Apollo, and then you can do it with focus as well. But you can play with the lighting sources
Mhm.
when you have the depth information in a photo. So I could have put a light, and this is all a simulation. I could have put a light behind her and had a hair light lighting up the edge of her hair on the left side of the frame there, and down her arm. There's technology available in these apps to do that, and that's something that I totally forgot to even think about before now. But um, lighting makes a photo interesting for sure. I used to be just a diehard gray sky photographer because I liked the even light and the diffused light that it produced. But in the last few years, I've really been looking for light and how it really plays on the subject and on the scene and things like that. So, um, light is important. What else do we got here? So you'll see in the video, the slideshow presentation thing, some images where no, actually in the demo, sorry, in Dwight's demo, where you'll see where he plays around with the uh, stage light and the contour light and all that stuff. So um, Dwight, before we show that, I'll get you to talk a little bit about what you've done
Sure.
in that demo. And same with the depth slider. So again, we've talked about that a number of times here already. The depth slider when you're adjusting the blur, um,
Mhm.
and I would recommend when you're playing with that, go all the way from one end all the way to the other, and then kind of find your sweet spot because you won't know just what it's capable of doing until you kind of see what the whole thing can do. Um, and then the last thing here, or not the last thing, but consider using third-party apps. Uh, Dwight and Dave, do you have any apps that can do portrait mode?
I used to use Focus mainly
Yeah.
because it did give you additional controls, including the lighting, where you could change, put more light on the front and more light on the back. Different segment. Last time I remember, it had like a 3D modeling where it would actually show you the slice. You can turn it around. After a while, though, it just got a little overly complicated for what I was
Mhm.
doing, and the results weren't worth the effort.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now,
Yeah, I would concur.
I don't know if Adobe has any features. I have to imagine they have to.
Well, Lightroom has background blur
Yeah.
in their
Mhm.
mobile app.
Is that paid
Um,
or is that part of the free model?
I'm not sure.
I think it might be part of the free one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I know
But
what
I
you
also
mean,
know, yeah.
Dave. You get the light source and you're bending
Mhm.
it around and things start twisting. Yeah, that I gave up on that as well.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you see people who are experts or very good at it. You see the amazing results they can do. and you're just trying to experiment. You're like, yeah, this isn't working. And then, after a while, you're like, well, yeah, whatever. Another third party app, and this is one that I come back to an awful lot, is Photo Room. Photo Room will also do a fake depth effect. So and that gives you the ability to actually paint out what you're trying to keep in focus, and then put the background as a blur. So either as like a regular bokeh blur or a motion blur. So it'll let you do that in addition to the normal one. So it'll let you say, it does a real good job with automatic, what am I trying to do? But sometimes it's like, well, this is what it automatically picks, but I also want to have this little thing added on as part of my subject, or I want to have this part removed. You can do that, and then you can change the background either as like a bokeh background, or change it where it's a little more muted as the background to give you kind of a depth effect, because not necessarily, I know it was popular for a while there. I even did a wedding photo for my niece where it was all black and white except for one color.
Mm-hmm.
And you could do something like that where
color pop.
Color pop. So main image is in color, the back is in black, or it's in sepia or something else. You got to be selective, because sometimes it just doesn't work out in terms of how it looks.
Yeah. And also, Greg, it's no secret that I do most of my editing on the desktop. In Photoshop, I can create a depth mask. So I can make a depth map from strongest to weakest. So if you know anything about masks, it's white. White reveals, black conceals. So white would be in the foreground, then it'd get grayer and grayer, grayer, and finally to black. And then I can put an adjustment layer over that with the mask over the top of it. So if I do a Gaussian blur or something like that and my subject's isolated, the mask will take care of that depth effect for me, and that mask is adjustable. So it's pretty interesting to do that on the desktop. And I think On One has that capability as well. I don't think Luminar has it yet, but depth map using those they're really nice for just different editing. You may want it a little more saturated in the foreground and let it kind of bleed off into black and white. It's interesting to play with.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise that Photoshop can do that kind of thing. I don't know if Luminar. Oh yeah, Luminar Neo has a blur feature in it. I haven't played with it yet, but so I don't know.
It doesn't have a
How
depth
good it
map.
is?
Doesn't have a depth map, but you can use different opacities to mask it off and create, that effect if you want.
Yeah.
Different opacities or strengths of your. You can put a blur effect on, and then you can, have a stronger strength erase brush and make it lighter as you go back to kind of do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Will Newcomb says he should use it more, portrait mode. He often uses after focus to produce bokeh in editing. And I think I've seen after focus, and if memory serves me, it's a pretty good app too. So it basically does kind of like what focus does. You could focus on, you tap to focus basically on your subject and blur the rest, that type of thing. And Norman says, like a Lux app uses native portrait mode capabilities to simulate its 8 signature lenses and f-stop options with very good effect. So I'm going to assume, Norman, that that's a paid feature. I have the app, but I haven't used it too much, and I don't think I'm pretty sure that's going to be a paid feature. That's interesting, and it's just amazing how these things are getting better and better and better all the time.
Yeah, and another app is Relens. I have that one as well.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, cool. Oh yeah, Norman says yes for all features. It's you got to pay for it. So I almost pulled the trigger on it one time, but I resisted because I just don't know how
$79
much
a
I
year.
use it.
Yeah,
Is that what it was?
so I think it is around $79 a year. Yeah,
Yeah, I think maybe that's what stopped me.
could have been.
So beyond people, some creative uses for portrait mode. Still life. You can use it for, uh, like I've used it to take a photo of a cup of coffee on a table. Um, Dwight, you've got this is the picture I was talking about. And this isn't the one I wanted to show. You know what? I forgot to put that in. Hang on. I'm going to switch that out. Well, while I have it up here, this is the one I was talking about earlier. That's in the video. I said to look for in the video, um, where you've got these flowers right there in the foreground, and they're
Hmm.
nice and sharp and clear and everything, but they're really kind of blended in with things in the background there. And even though I don't think it happened in this case, but it could very easily lose, some of the edge detection, some of the stem, that sort of thing.
It
So that's
did.
something to watch out for.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it, well, maybe not, but yeah, you have to watch out for it.
Yeah,
So everything in that plane of the depth map is in focus, and then everything else isn't.
right. Yeah. So I'm going to take that down for a second, and I'm going to pull this one up that really wanted to show here. And okay, so this one here, when we're talking about creative uses, so still life. This could actually be still life, but we've got this under the category of flowers.
Yeah, so I was down at the beach, checking the waves one day, and I saw this, and it just grabbed my attention. There's some story around that thing, but I got really low. And if you can just imagine me taking a photo with just the regular camera, the iPhone tries to focus on everything. Might have been a good photo, but it would have really been hard to distinguish what the subject matter was. And I think, using the portrait mode and the focal point on these flowers, obviously brings the subject to the forefront, and the background just really isn't as important, but it provides texture.
Hmm. Yeah, it does a really good job of separating. Like that lone flower that's hanging out to the left there.
Mhm.
Um, I think in early portrait mode days, it might have not picked up that stem very well.
Yeah, I would agree.
You know, uh, but I think it did a great job. And I like the way the bokeh gets stronger as it goes further back, as it
Mhm.
should, right?
Mhm.
That's what it should do. That's what it would do if it was optical. So, so that's a good example of um, basically using portrait mode for anything but people. Flowers. And coffee cups. You could use it for things like a cup of coffee on a table or whatever. And I'm going to slowly ramble here while I get these other pictures back up.
Mhm.
Feel free to chime in, guys, on anything. But uh, Dave, you introduced something that I never would have dreamt to use portrait mode for, and that is like a macro or a close up,
Mhm.
like you've done with this flower, and this is bloody amazing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so this was just a flower on the side of a road, and I wanted to have, because the flower was so by itself. Dwight's photo, you have the entire bunch of flowers kind of overlapping each other, while this is more of a solitary. And I thought, well, I want it to really stand out on its own. So let me try portrait mode. And I think it turned out really well in terms of even hitting the stamen details in the middle of the
Hmm.
flower. So it was, and because I didn't do this 1x. I'm trying to remember if I did this in 2. I think I did this in 2x. So I had to step back a little bit more to get the portrait mode to work. But I think it turned out really good. And I was, like you said, about having the border. Sometimes if it's too severe, it looks fake. It looks too stark. It looks. it doesn't look like a real bokeh effect. So that's something I a little overdid here. I will admit it's a little uh sharp in terms of the difference, but I also wanted
I
to
beg to
darken the
differ, Dave.
background and everything. Okay.
I beg to differ, and I'll tell you why. Because this looks like it was shot with a macro lens, like a long range macro lens. I've got an unfair advantage because I could actually see the whole thing on my desktop, not through StreamYard, and it looks damn good for
It
a
looks
Thanks.
portrait
similar.
mode
It looks
photo.
similar to that, doesn't it, Greg? I mean, I have the long range macro as well, and the bokeh on
Yeah,
that is unbelievable. But
yeah,
this is pretty
yeah.
close,
It
especially
is.
around the top.
Yeah, and so if you had taken this with portrait or with macro mode on your phone, it would have completely fallen apart in the in the in the in that the get my mind straight here. The background, the blur would have been overly processed looking,
Okay, yeah.
right? So I mean, yes, it's processed now because it's portrait mode, but because the it gives it that natural sort of quote unquote natural blur that it's trying to do. It hides a lot of the over processing that it's doing. Like it's just like it's putting a Gaussian blur on it, and it's so much better. Like if you took this and then you did it with macro mode,
Mhm.
this will win every time. I'll guarantee you. Yeah, I'm flabbergasted at how well that turned out, and I can't wait to get out and try this because I've never thought to take a portrait mode picture of a flower like this. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I have done it, but not to this effect. I don't think
Right.
it turned out really well.
No, thanks. Yeah, and like I said, it's one of those things. They're literally it's that is to me one of the great things about mobile photography is the experimentation.
Oh yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
this may be somewhere I'm just not familiar with. It's like, well, I'll give it a try and see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And you don't have to wait for your film to be developed.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Uh, Will says two things he likes about autofocus is it has two modes of blur, enabling the perception of distance. Also, the bokeh can be completely desaturated, which can help you hide color contrast where it's distracting. So that's kind of like that color pop you were talking about,
Yeah.
Dave, in your that wedding photo. So yeah, I mean, now I think I might have to look up afterfocus just to see what it's all about.
Greg,
Oh,
I think I've already downloaded it, so you got to catch up with me.
well, let me check. Maybe I can. Maybe I've had it at some point. I will do a quick search in the App Store because I know I've looked it up. If I haven't if I haven't downloaded it, and no, I haven't. Okay, there's my homework. That's the one from Sky Media.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
$3.99 US one charge.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. $399.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. $3.99.
okay. That don't sound right because one of my dogs wants it. Hold on. Here you go. So just to remove ads, it says here $2.99 Canadian.
Well,
So I'm gonna have to look at that. And in
Yeah.
fact, I'll just hit the get button now and look at it in more detail later. But yeah, I definitely want to look into that one. So macro style close-ups. So okay, so now we're going to go back to last week's or the last episode just a little bit here because Dave's got a couple here. So first of all, we will let's see here. We'll go back to your first flower picture, Dave, in the parking lot. And like we said before, this has some nice separation and things like that. And that made it easy for you to do this. So talk a little bit about, how portrait mode made this easy for you to accomplish.
Yeah. So the very first thing I did was put it into Photomator and basically cut out the flower by itself. And honestly, when I was looking at the flower, I was trying different angles because I didn't want to have the cars in the background. And I know I could have used, the cleanup tool or touch retouch to get rid of the cars, but there were a good amount of cars there and they were kind of overlapping with the flower and you had the power poles. So I figured, well, if I could just take the flower out by itself. And then I thought, okay, what would be I want a frame like background. So, and I wanted something where the colors would be complementary, and almost like stained glass. So in Photomator, you can kind of describe the image you're looking for, and it'll search the web, and it's what it has access to. And I just really like the way that the background went on. And I want to say the front, I forget what the white kind of splatter look. That was another app which I forget right now which one I used, but that was because I liked it as is, but I also just wanted some more framing. I wanted more, more layers to it without being overly distracting. So I decided to basically put that on top and kind of move it around where the flower would it's kind of like you're looking through a window.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, and it just goes to show you that this digital art stuff can be, there's just another tool, to
Mhm.
use, portrait mode, with the segmentation and the separation of the subject to the background. It's easy to pull that out and, you know, or surround it with other things. And um, I think it's a pretty cool way to make use of that for sure.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to show here that Maurice says, great job on that flower. My hack to get bokeh on large flowers is to use an 18 millimeter wide lens, as the macro lenses often can't capture the whole thing. Turns out it delivers good bokeh if you're close.
Hmm.
So, there's another good tip. Um,
Mhm.
so, yeah, the 18 millimeter wide angle lens, that's like, um, Moment has that, Reflex has it. All the big players have these wide angle lenses, and I think partially because you're putting it on the main camera, I think that um, really helps get that blurred background, especially when you're just at the right distance away.
Mhm.
Um, so the last thing we have is a fake tilt shift effect using portrait mode. I spent, I'll bet you, an hour today looking for a picture that I took with halide in with the depth map. So it's basically in portrait mode. A few years ago, I forget which phone it was, but it was a picture that I took from a little steel bridge that goes over this river, and it was looking down the river. And I didn't know what it was gonna do. I just put it in portrait mode and I took the shot, and it turns out it looks just like it was done with a tilt shift lens, and I can't find it. I tried to find it. I wanted to find it so bad. Um, I looked through a couple of different hard drives, a couple of different photos libraries, and nothing. Now you watch. Tomorrow I'll try to find it, and bang, it'll be right there.
Mhm.
But you could do that with, a city with a street scene, or overlooking a city, all that type of thing. It's a really cool way. So I guess it goes to show you that you don't have to be 6 to 8 feet away. That would be optimum for a person. But when it comes to a scene like that, um, where you're trying to get that tilt shift look, it works out quite well. Have you guys tried that at all?
No, I'm going to now though.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, every time I try to do tilt shift, it's more of an after effect, like in Snapseed
Yeah,
or
yeah.
another thing like that, where I get the photo and try to do it. And you know, it it probably would be easier to do live-ish because that way you would know where to center your photo versus trying to do it after the fact.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think with portrait mode, um, I think it'll turn out better than what you can get with Snapseed because it will actually separate things in by distance, by true distance,
Mhm.
not by what it thinks or whatever. Um, so that's a good way to play around with portrait mode. Um, so that's basically what we have for portrait mode, and basically how it works and what you can do with it. Um, there's probably things that we may have missed, but uh, it is a very complex technology that's built into the phone, and I wish I could explain better how it works exactly technically, um, but it's a really cool thing, and I can't wait to see what they're gonna
Mhm.
bring to it this year coming up. I guess we'll find out in what 2 weeks? Two
Probably
weeks to the
within 2 weeks, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the heavy rumor is the 9th.
yeah.
So it'll be
Actually,
just
I
about
think
2
the
weeks.
invites have gone out, Dave.
Have they? Okay.
I think to the for
I
the
know
9th.
that I
I'm
know
not
there was a
100% sure.
rumor and leak about it, but I don't know if it was official.
Mhm.
That'll probably go out next Tuesday after Labor Day here in the US.
Yeah. Yeah. So, exciting times.
Yeah.
So, basically, our next show will be, um, after the event,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. And we
So,
get
we're
to
gonna
see how the air is if there is an air.
Hmm.
I'll bet you there is. I'll bet you it's, like, wafer thin, and
Mhm.
I'll bet you they are making that because and I don't wanna go too far into the rumor mill here, but I think they're making that so that the next year, they will be able to put 2 of them together and have the folding phone they've been talking about, or
Mhm.
people have been talking about forever.
Mhm.
I think that's the only way they can do it is to have something that thin. Now, it's I don't know, a millimeter or so thinner. I'm not sure what the numbers are exactly, but, um
New Ben Gate.
yeah, exactly. So, well, we're going to sign off for the audio. I want to thank everybody for listening and watching on your podcast player. So when the images come up, uh, if you're in the Facebook group, which you should be, uh, let us see your portrait mode shots in any way, shape, or form that you've done them, and use the hashtag podcast portrait mode. Now I know it's maybe a little long, but trying to make these so that when you do a search for these things, you'll see it. You'll find our group.
Mhm.
So podcast portrait mode, and throw your images in there and let's have a look at them. The images that you see here will be in the show notes after the podcast comes out on the audio on Wednesday, and uh, we'll also have Dwight's demo and the video at the end. There'll be links to those in the show notes with a they'll when you hit them, like if you're in the podcast app and you hit these links to the demo or to the slideshow, it'll take you right to those in YouTube, so you don't have to look for them. They'll just like the ones we did on reflection. These will come right to that very spot in the YouTube video. So stay tuned for that. And um, I guess that's all we got. So thanks for listening,
Would you,
and we'll see you on the next one. And YouTube audience, stay tuned.
Have a great week, everyone.
yep.
Okay, so Dwight, you want to just give a quick briefing on what this first demo has?
Yeah, so I was looking at the outline earlier this morning, Greg, and I thought it'd be nice just to record a quick, it's very quick, so hopefully everybody can follow it. But it's essentially me going into my camera app and selecting the portrait mode. And then I had my son in front of me, and how I focused on him, and then I took the shot. Then I went into my photo library and I picked it out, the photo, and then I went into the edit mode, and then at the upper left, you'll see a little F with a circle around it. I hit that, and then you'll have the slider on the bottom, and you can play with that slider to adjust that background blur. And then I got out of that, and then I just wanted to show some of the different lighting effects that you can get as well. You know, they all didn't work for that particular photo, but I just cycled through those, and basically that's it. You may have to pull back and watch it a couple times because I went very fast, you know, for the sake of time.
And leave it to me, but I got the wrong one there. Oh no, this is the right one. What am I doing? What am I thinking of? Okay, so here it is. So I'm just going to play it, and Dwight does have like a voiceover on the video from where he was standing. So here it is. Now, can you guys hear the audio?
No,
Okay. I think I have to.
and I wasn't
Change
sure if
this.
I was speaking by then though.
Yeah, you were. Let me see. Where did I do that before? I know I played audio on the last time. Maybe it's in the settings. Hang on a second.
Or
Where
you
did
can
I-
play it and I can talk to it, Greg.
Well, I wanted to have the audio ready to go for the other video too, so I got to figure
Yeah.
this out. Well, maybe I'll play it, and while it's playing, I'll see if I can figure out what went wrong
Well,
with why it's
Also,
not.
Greg, on the right side, where there's like the AirPlay button, a little. If you go from the play
Oh.
button, right there. Well, that.
No, it's just set to for my
Okay.
Mac. It's
Okay.
there's a setting or something that's driving me nuts. Can't figure it out. Anyway, okay, so I'll play it, and Dwight, you kind of narrate, I guess, if you will,
Sure.
and I'll see if I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong here.
Okay, so I'm in photos. Everybody has their photos set like this. In theory, when you open your camera, see portrait off to the right. So I moved to portrait mode, and it's under natural light. And I framed my son's head in there, and then I tapped on his face, and so that's my focal point. And I just took the shot. I think I switched between the lenses just to see what would work. I think I went back to 2. There's the 1x lens. Oh, I stayed on the 1. Okay. I took the shot. I went back into. There we go. So I'm going to hit the edit button at the bottom, and you can see my F slider at the bottom. See down there? So I'm just playing with that. See how the background changes as I move that slider? So now I'm kind of dialing it in for the appropriate blur. I don't know if it showed up that well on the. Oh, I can hear myself now. Now these are the different lighting effects: contour light, stage light mono, and high key. So if you look at how it carves him out, you can kind of see where there might be some inaccuracies in the depth map, but I think it works okay for this one. Maybe a little bit of fuzziness around his hat, so I may want to dial some of that f-stop back a little bit to make that a little bit sharper. Background might be a little bit too blurry, but it's just an example of how you can kind of play with it.
Yeah, it's cool.
Greg, I can hear myself faintly speaking in the background, so I don't know if it's a volume thing.
Oh, you mean from the video?
Yeah, I was hearing it in my headphones when you played it.
Well, it was turned right up.
Okay.
Well, if you can hear it in your headphones, then so YouTube audience, did you hear the the audio from the video as well as Dwight talking, let me know.
Okay.
Because I could hear it. And Dave, you didn't hear it?
No, I didn't hear it, but
Oh, Luke's
No,
my
they
my
couldn't
my
hear it.
issue also could have been, yeah. It also could just be you're hearing it locally, but I don't know what you're going through before you send it out, so that may kind of pull that audio away.
And the
Oh,
YouTube
you know
audience
what?
is not hearing it, Greg.
Okay, hang on. I think I
Yeah.
might know what I did wrong.
You can replay it if you want, unless you guys got the gist of it.
Well, you kind of explained it pretty
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
In fact, you were almost word for word at a couple of points.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay, so I've got to not share the screen per se, but show a video file, and that's what I should have done. So now I've got the video ready to go. So so folks in the YouTube chat, thank you for hanging out with us for this long and through my flubs and everything else. We'll put that demo video in with the show notes on the Facebook group, or on the actually the Facebook page for the podcast. And the video you're about to see, it's going to be too big to upload to that. I probably could do it, but I think I'll just link it to YouTube, to this point in YouTube. And because the music in it, I know it's okay for YouTube. I'm just not sure what Meta would want to do with it. But in any case, this is just a video slideshow like we had a couple of episodes ago, showing a bunch of portrait mode images. And once the video is over, that'll be the end of the stream. So thank you everybody for playing along, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe and share this video, and we'll see you all in the next one.
Thanks, everyone, and get out and practice and show us what you
Yes,
got.
definitely. Podcast portrait mode hashtag. So use that. Okay, here's this video, and I'm pretty sure the sound should come with it. Can you guys hear the sound?
Mm-hmm.